Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, November 8th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Purdue game is today, the game against Michigan in 21 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. All right, so the setup's a little different, so you're probably figuring out we're probably in a hotel room. Yes, Tony Gerdeman and I are in Indiana for the Ohio State and Purdue game, but we have a little bit of breaking news for you. Matt Wilhelm, 2026 offensive lineman, has committed to Ohio State, was previously committed to UNC. He got an Ohio State offer on Thursday, decommitted from them, and then committed to Ohio State on Friday. And, you know, there's some pieces of Matt Wilhelm's story where even before he was born, he was a little bit destined to end up at Ohio State.
Yeah, he has a Buckeye legacy, the son of former All-American linebacker Matt Wilhelm. So, yeah, grew up being a Buckeye fan, I'm going to assume.
Probably,
yes. And I saw him him and his dad at the national championship celebration, watching on from the corral where we all were. And so, yeah, it's not a shock to see once that offer gets handed over to you, you're like, why wait? And I know he's still got like playoff football going on. And so, yeah, you get in and this is something that you've been striving for, you've been fighting for, you've wanted. And then when the opportunity finally arises, why hesitate? Why play time at that point hard to get where you're like, well, like when players like take offense to being offered late, and you're like, well, I'm going to make you sweat this one out. There's no sweating this one out.
No, this probably was a relatively easy decision for him once that offer did come. And he's someone we've seen around campus. I think the photo that we'll have on this as the thumbnail is going to be, unless I find a more recent one, from a 2023 visit to Ohio State. So he's someone that Ohio State has been obviously aware of and tracking quite a bit. And we've seen him at summer camps at various points over the years. And, he is someone who feels like, sometimes it's like, well, is this going to be a tackle? Is this going to be? He feels like he's probably a pure interior line prospect.
And what I really like is he's already playing on the interior. We've talked in the past where all offensive linemen that are prospects want to play left tackle in high school, and they're the best. And I think with Matt Wilhelm, they're coming from a place of reality in terms of he's like 6'4", 285, something like that, where you're going to be on the interior. So why waste time, doing something other than that in high school? So he's been in there. He plays defensive tackle as well, so he's very involved in the scrum. And watching some of his recent highlights and recent games, he's got quick feet. He's mobile, which is exactly what you want at guard. And he's still growing and all of those good things. But I just like the fact that he understands reality and is already embracing that.
Well, and another thing that sort of helps there is he plays for St. Ed's up in Cleveland, and St. Ed's is a program that produced the Armstrong twins, who are at Ohio State right now, but Michigan has pulled players out of there, offensive linemen out of there. That's a program where the offensive line is generally loaded with Division I talent, so this is not something where, well, they would certainly be better off having him play left tackle, and he's selfishly choosing to play inside. They've got plenty of other prospects there as well. So, this is a school where one of the deepest offensive line rooms probably anywhere in the state of Ohio, basically year to year. You can just sort of rely on St. Ed's having that kind of an offensive line room. I got to give this explanation about a week ago when we did a show on two in-state Ohio players committing. Tony, why do you feel it's beneficial that Ohio State builds its offensive line recruiting class in particular with a foundation of Ohio players?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to go way off from you. I'm going to give the people the accurate reasoning why. But this is a developmental position, and it comes with a need for a certain amount of patience. And they have that. But then also with that certain amount of patience, there's a certain amount of loyalty that comes from growing up in Ohio, wanting to be a Buckeye, and you combine patience and loyalty, and it's not adding, it's multiplying almost. And it gives you more time with them. But also Ohio, a late developing state in terms of a lot of talent because of spring football and other things, multi-sport athletes, things like that. And the offensive line, you see them develop over time. And we always talk about not expecting anything from an offensive line recruit for the first 3 years, or for most of them. And sometimes you get a guy like Austin Seerveld who comes almost out of nowhere and surprises everybody. That's not the norm. So you get these guys in state that want to be Buckeyes, want to stay Buckeyes, and will stay as long as they see an opportunity for them. And some will stay even longer because this is what they want. This is what they've always wanted. This is what they've always thought about being. So yes, there's value in that. Plus, you see all over the Big Ten and places in the SEC and Clemson. Why are there so many offensive linemen from Ohio around? So it's like, why not take as many as you can? And right now they've got 4 in the class.
Yeah, 4 from Ohio, 5 overall. And, let's take a real quick run through that class just for people who aren't thinking about it. Because the last time we were talking about offensive line commits, we were talking about 2027. So this is 26. This is the current recruiting class right now. Sam Greer, top 75 player nationally. Max Riley, top 100 player nationally. Those are kind of the two guys who I think people just look at the rankings and get excited there. But you've got Tucker Smith out of Arizona. Obviously, you now have Mason Wilhelm and Landry Breed as well from Mentor, Ohio. You've got a lot of Northeast Ohio guys. I don't know why Northeast Ohio in particular produces so many offensive linemen, but you go through the roster right now for Ohio State, and it's like, are they settling for these Ohio guys? Well, 4 of the starters on the offensive line right now are from Ohio. And a couple, 2 to 3, depending on how you want to sort out the 2 deep right now, 2 to 3 of the second string guys are from Ohio. And then you've got Gabe Van Sickle, who's from a bordering state in Michigan. And you've got Ian Moore, who's from a bordering state in Indiana. And, Carson Hinsman from Wisconsin. It's really the only guy who's anywhere close to the 2 deep who's from significantly further away is Ethan Onyanwa, and he was a transfer, not a recruit. This is a part of the country where, we drove past a bunch of Culvers on the way here, and maybe that's part of the problem, but this is a part of the country that it produces a lot of offensive linemen, and you can't necessarily make your living just recruiting Ohio native wide receivers or running backs. You'll certainly get some, but you can't just pull everyone from there. Offensive line, it feels like, boy, you could really build most of your class most years just out of Ohio and maybe going into bordering states.
Yeah, and I like grabbing the Ohioans and then going and chasing maybe the bigger fish that are the national recruits. And trust me, there's Ohio recruits that are national recruits as well. I mean, even Mason Wilhelm had offers from the Big 12, the ACC, and and the Big 10 as well. So like he could have gone a lot of different places, but get the guys in, get them locked in, and then if you need to go and search and like try to land those big fish. And we talked on a recent show, Felix Ojo said Ohio State came in second. What good does that do for Ohio State? Maybe down the road in the portal it does some good. Like Caleb Downs finishing second there, Julian Sand finishing second there. So like there's some positives to finishing second, but not if you strike out and don't fill that spot. And so that's something they're able to do. And in terms of Mason Wilhelm, his ranking, like the 24/7 composite has him at 1275. Justin Terry, who they took out of the portal from West Virginia, from Ohio, he was 1874. Philip Daniels, 770. And he did not have an offer from Ohio State. The one that I always like to go back to is Pat Elflein, 983. And then, of course, DeJuan Jones, 1127. So if you average those 4, it comes to about 1,200. So here you got Mason Wilhelm in the 1,200s as well.
Yeah, and this is just a developmental position, and you can't just go, well, we'll recruit exclusively out of the 1,200s, and on average we'll get something between a Pat Elflein and a DeJuan Jones. No, that's not right. But if you evaluate well, and the trend line on Mason Wilhelm has been very, very, very much up recently, which guys are going to develop at different times. As you said, no spring football. That is a reason why Ohio guys are sometimes a little later developing than guys from Texas or Florida or somewhere like that. So, and just the offensive line position in general, you can think of plenty of 5-star. It's. I don't know if it's quite as difficult to evaluate offensive linemen as it is quarterbacks, but it's not dissimilar. And if you can do it, and it sure seems like Tyler Bowen has a pretty good, and Tyler Bowen and Charlie Dickey and everyone else in that room, because it's not just the one guy. They have a really experienced and diverse staff there. that's a group that's pretty good at evaluation. It sure seems like it's also a group that's showing some real chops and development where, guys who, Philip Daniels, who last year was kind of maybe just almost okay at Minnesota, comes to Ohio State and just boom, immediately is starting right tackle on a team that's unbeaten and has been pretty darn good on the offensive line for decent chunks of the season. So,
yeah. You don't look at him as like, boy, are they in trouble because they're playing that guy at all.
Right. Yep. So there you go. So there's your breaking news update. Mason Wilhelm commits to Ohio State, son of Matt Wilhelm. Always love to have a Buckeye legacy in the program. They have plenty more Buckeye legacies on the field in West Lafayette tomorrow. A couple of fellows on the Ohio State defense whose dad played linebacker back in the 90s. We'll have coverage of Sonny and Lorenzo Jr. and all of their teammates as well coming up all day on Saturday at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We'll have our usual pregame show, the live postgame show, all the stuff you've come to know and expect from all of us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.